You're listening to Your Rivers Are Wrong, the podcast. My name is Merle. I'm here with my good friend Dante, and we're here to build worlds and tell their stories. So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Good morning, or evening, or afternoon, whenever you may be. Welcome back to the Your Rivers Are Wrong podcast. I'm one of your hosts. My name is Dante.
And I'm the other host, and my name is Merle.
And we're here, as we are every week, to talk about the wonderful whimsies of world building, the arts and aesthetics of setting up a setting and telling stories born from it.
There you go.
We're back at it.
We are back at it.
Okay.
Hi, Dante.
Hey.
Hey.
How you been? How's your week?
Chaos. But we're managing. It's gotta be fine.
I know you're prepping right now. I know in the back of your mind you're thinking about the 10 things you have to do for the trip that's happening soon.
It's funny because usually I work on Mondays and Wednesdays and Thursdays, right?
Right.
And I'm supposed to take the coming Wednesday off.
Okay.
Because we're recording on Tuesday. I planned a free day for myself, which I can do. But I'm not done.
Yeah.
I have more work to do. So I'm going to do it this afternoon. And also packing my shit. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
And also rehearsals for the musical project. We're going to be fun.
Which is also tonight, right?
Yeah.
Busy day.
I'm okay. What do you mean?
I remember when I was packing, I'm like, I'm going to pack way ahead of time. I'll have my luggage ready like 3 days before. Nope. Night of, I had so much I was going through. I got a whole checklist on my computer.
Works.
Okay, I need this. I was running all over the place, getting everything. I stepped out at 3 a.m. and I was like, okay, I need to buy this from the supermarket before I head out.
Oh, God. Yeah. Dang.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's me tomorrow. Today I'm even too busy to think about being stressed for packing.
Understood.
Which is maybe a problem in its own right. But as long as I end up in the train that I need to take, I'll be good. And then I can relax. And this is the thing that you were talking about. For the uninitiated, by the way, I'm going to Cambridge in a few days and it's really nice, but also what causes me packing anxiety and also having other things in my week that I'm supposed to do now in 2 days instead of 5.
Yeah, everything really just piles up the moment before. Yeah, I totally understand. Seriously, once you're sitting in the mode of transportation you're taking, that's when you can finally be like, okay.
It's up to other people now to get me to where I'm going. Yep.
There's nothing I can do to change anything. Yeah. This is what I got. We're good. Exactly. Yeah. What are you most excited about?
Ooh. Well, I'm going to see the Phantom of the Opera in London, which is amazing, I hope, and also a very cool thing to do solo, which I've never done before, let alone in a country that I'm never at. So that's good. And also, I'm just very happy to meet the people from the studies because this is a remote thing. So I've never seen their faces. I've just chatted with them and, they're doing the same assignments as me, but never seen them in the flesh. And I think they're great people. So I'm very excited to hang with them for a good 4 nights, I think. Yeah, something like that.
Nice.
Yeah, that's going to be super fun. I really hope it's going to be great.
Are you guys all staying in the same hotels or are you?
We did a shared Airbnb, which is great because now we have
that.
a fancy apartment because we could split the costs. So I don't need to, do the hostel life, which I would have done, gladly. But it's even better if I have a bedroom.
Also for 4 days? I
don't even have that in my own house.
Look at all this room.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
There's a garden and a bath and everything, none of which I own in real life.
What a fancy thing.
It's
exactly.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I'm very excited.
Yeah, that's cool.
How about you? How have you been?
Well, I've had an interesting week. As you know, I've been recovering from a cough since coming back from Europe, and it's still around. It's still bothering me. So
that sucks.
I went to the doctor. He recommended some medications that I've never taken before, and I'm like, okay, sure, I'll just take it as directed. I had, as a quick tangent, basically, I had a stream that I was doing on YouTube, and I was just going over some new content, and the stream lasted for 2 hours, and I had the medication, so I'm like, okay, I'm not worried about coughing, but one of the weirdest things is the side effect of this med that I've never taken before, and now I know it's a side effect when I take it.
Trial by error.
Is that it gives me hiccups.
Wait. That's the funniest side effect.
At the beginning of the video and the end of the video, I had an incurable case of hiccups. And it was the most embarrassing thing because at the beginning, I'm like, okay, let me just sort myself out. Let me get some water. And I'm just every sentence, I'm like, okay, so we're going to go over this line. And then we're going to talk about this.
Did you know it was by the medications by then? Or were you just what's going on in my body?
All right. So when I have hiccups, I have like 100% foolproof method to get rid of it.
Okay.
I hold my nose, take a glass of water, and chug it until I can't anymore, and the hiccups are gone.
Wow.
Works 100% of the time.
Good for you.
Except for this time. I'm like, something's wrong. Everything seems off balance today. So I got rid of it temporarily, and then it came back at the very, very end. I had only 3 paragraphs to get through, and it just comes back with a fervor.
No.
And I'm like,
God.
guys, I'm gonna get through this. Just give me some time. I'm gonna go over this. It was the most frustrating thing. And the chat was like, "Oh, I hope you feel better. I know it's hard to breathe right now." And I'm like, thanks,
at
guys.
least they were with you. Of all the things you could have done on a day, live streaming is maybe the worst thing for hiccup issues. Yeah,
there's nothing I could do.
It's not
it
a
was
good
the
match.
most bizarre thing.
Oh man.
Well, the VOD of that is on my YouTube channel. If anyone wants to hear me suffer,
I might have to check it out now because it sounds very funny. Even though you were suffering for real, I'm very sorry. I mean, at least you're not doing it now, so I feel like that's progress.
Yeah. I think the symptoms have died down as I got used to the meds, but
okay.
Caught me off guard.
That's something.
That's the big thing of my week, more or less.
Interesting. Wait, so is your cough also done now? Kinda, sorta?
No. I'm still holding back. I'll mute myself every now and then, but I'm still holding back coughs. It seems like a long ride, and maybe in a week or so it'll be gone, but
I hope so. Yeah, that takes some time.
Yeah, sometimes you hope to just ride it out, and then it's just like, nope, it's going to stay for a little bit
Not
longer.
today. Yep.
Yeah. And the weather's changing here. It's getting really rainy.
Ooh.
I don't know if it's on the news, but there's a hurricane passing by the East Coast. So Florida and all the lower states were hit super hard, and we're getting entrails of storms and flooding and all.
Oh, okay. So. Whoa.
Yeah,
Crazy.
but that'll come to pass.
Hurricanes are so far out of my league. That's not a thing at all.
Hurricanes don't happen in Europe. Are you crazy? Are you sure?
I mean, not in my country. Maybe somewhere.
Yeah, okay. That's fair. You're kind of out of the path.
Yeah, for sure.
That totally makes sense. Okay, well, that's the life update.
I love the chaotic vibe so far.
So far, yeah.
Been a while since we had some good chaos going, I feel.
Been a while since our life's been a little bit off balance, but leading into all good things.
It never is a final thing. It always has to eventually end up back into the chaos we started with.
Yeah, we're skipping a week of recording because Marila's going to enjoy a wonderful trip. Will an episode be delayed for next week? Who knows? We'll find out when we get there.
We'll figure it out as we go.
Yeah, but you're not here to listen to that sort of thing. You're here to listen to conversations about world building and storytelling.
Yeah.
On this podcast, we each bring a topic to the transatlantic table, which I'm getting quite fond of saying.
That's a good sentence, yeah.
And then Marila brings one, and then we end the podcast with a prompt. Are you ready for my topic? Because I think I'm starting this week. Is that correct?
I think so, too. Yes.
Okay. Now, forgive me.
Take it away.
I looked up as much as I could about this topic, but it doesn't seem like history is so decided on its definition. So we're going to kind of work through that here.
Okay.
The topic that I have, I know that's a weird lead up.
Good startup. Yeah, sure. Keep going.
The topic I have for this episode is demigods. We're going to talk about demigods.
Epic. Okay. I like it.
Obviously, this word has been used multiple times throughout history by different cultures, but its meaning has changed a bit, and it hasn't been formally defined for universal use. So what I did is I went to the most reliable source on the internet, which is Wikipedia, and I looked up exactly what a demigod or demigoddess is. So I'm going to go through that right now. A demigod or demigoddess is a part human and part divine offspring of a deity and a human, or a human or non-human creature that is accorded divine status after death, or someone who has attained the divine spark. An immortal demigod or demigoddess often has tutelary status and a religious cult following, while a mortal demigod or goddess is one who has fallen or died but is popular as a legendary hero in various polytheistic religions. Figuratively, it is used to describe a person whose talents or abilities are so superlative that they appear to approach being divine. So,
wow, that's like 4 definitions in one.
Exactly. So we're going to kind of parse through these and kind of see how they lend themselves to the process of world building and storytelling. So one of the first ones, actually one of my favorite parts of that little paragraph at the top of the Wikipedia page, is the line, someone who has attained the divine spark.
Yeah.
Which is just like an evocative little phrase right there. What does that mean? It's like As you can see, my hands raised as we're doing this on video. So the phrase divine spark, it means that they possess something, right? They possess something that is special, that is otherworldly, that is divined upon them or blessed upon them. And there's multiple processes. How does that word go? Of like how they gain it, right? There is through lineage where one parent is a god and one parent is not.
Yeah.
Or it's simply granted to them for feats that they've done or accomplishments that they've achieved. Or it's like something that's given to them like after they die, after their story's all over, then they're deemed as a demigod, which is perhaps an ascension to another state or a second life after your first. But we kind of wanted to find the phrase divine spark and how that materializes in like literature or culture. So when I say like divine spark, what kind of ideas are evoked by that?
Ooh, I think if I would describe a person with a divine spark in real life, it would be the person that kind of pulls all the energy toward them in a room, kind of. Where you're like, are they glowing or is this just my imagination? You know what I mean? Quite literally, but also metaphorically glowing. Like they're just cooler than everyone else. Either in, talent or both, or in looks or in, I guess, the way they socialize or, I don't know, that they're real fucking rich or something. Like either one of those. But then I don't know how that sort of relates to divinity, because not all like fancy, aesthetically pleasing, hot, and also friendly people are necessarily divine,
really? This is true. There's a
difference in definition there. But I feel like that's kind of when a person possesses a spark. There's something like, I'm making a hand motion now, like you can't really grasp it. Yeah.
Yeah. It ties into that last phrase in the paragraph. Used to describe a person whose talents or abilities are so superlative, love that word, superlative, that they appear to approach being divine.
Yeah.
So not quite godly, but pretty darn close,
Goddish.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I like how when you were talking about that, it reminded me of the ASMR from D&D, where their main stat is charisma, right? And there's something about having that pull, having that sort of allure or charisma that kind of carries you above everything and everyone around you. You
and also,
stick out.
ASMRs are kind of angelic beings, right? Maybe just for clarification. Yeah.
True.
So they're literally kind of in between of, I guess, ascension and descension. Heaven and earth. They're kind of
somewhere like that. Yeah.
In the middle there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
So the idea that they're like separate from the pack, they're not like the others. They are indicative, actually, purely by existing of there being some sort of divine structure, right? That there is some sort of like God or higher being that has provided them this crazy power. And then you got to kind of tap into what does that mean for the world, that there is overseers or watchers or things like that. And this person is their chosen or their blessed or their offspring, right? I imagine a relevant series that a lot of people are familiar with is Percy Jackson, where there's a whole lot of like kids and teenagers who are the children of gods, and they have to kind of find their place in the world with the powers that they have and things like that. As another modern kind of connection to that, something that's similar to demigodhood is the story of Smallville, where Clark Kent, as a teenager who lives on a farm, has to get used to the realization that he is Superman, that he has all of these powers, that he...
I was waiting until I'm like, I don't know the story. Oh, wait, I do. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. He's not necessarily descended from a god, but among his peers, he's certainly god-like. And once he realizes he can run very fast and fly and see through things and realize that he has these powers, how does he fit into this world? One of the big concepts of Superman is that he has all of this incredible power. He can do whatever he wants. So when given that responsibility, when given that opportunity, what does he do with it? Does he do good? Does he service himself?
Yeah.
Like what is the balance of responsibility, and what do you do with that sort of power? Those kind of stories. I find that like stories about straight up gods where they like rule over a realm and oversee things and talk to mortals and stuff like that, that's okay. Those are okay stories. But when you talk about somebody in between, when you talk about the person who's almost there, not quite in charge of something, not quite ruling over peoples, and it's kind of the transitionary phase into becoming a god or a godlike being. That's fun. That's a lot. That's really interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
You see their development,
It reminds me also of I had two things in mind just now, but I just can't think of one. Maybe I'll figure out the other one in a second.
Sure.
But the first thing is kind of the very real issue that a lot of kids have that come from parents from different cultures. I'm sure I don't have to explain this to you, but I think it's a very sort of, well, not cliche is not the word, but like, I guess, well-known,
time-tested
issue around sort of multicultural kids or people in general, that you never quite fit in either place. But also that you kind of fit in both places, and that it's not really, it's both very lonely and very broadening your horizon in a way.
Right.
Which is interesting. And I think that definitely also in a way applies to demigods, if we're talking about it. Because on the one hand, there's this like, okay, the gods will never think you're worthy because you're basically a human with, okay, well, we gave you some powers, cool. And then the humans kind of don't relate to you because you're really good at everything. And very, in with the gods that we are worshiping because they're magic, mythical, crazy beings, right? And you're kind of part of them, which is weird.
Yeah.
And kind of off-putting almost.
Like, are you really one of us kind of thing?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Oh, I remember the second thing. There we go. Perfect fucking timing. The second thing is that it's very interesting to me that we think of this as demigods, right? Because there's a lot of stories where people have powers or where they're basically angels or, I don't know, you name it, anything where humans, regular quote unquote humans, can do magical, crazy things. But then we don't necessarily have to call them a demigod. Think of fairy tales or think of, I don't know, any kind of, I guess also superhero story is not necessarily talked about in the sort of demigod definition, right? Which is also why I think it's very funny that the Wikipedia is basically like 5 definitions in one. Like some people call demigods when they're almost ascending to godhood or godness. And some people call other humans demigods if they just are very talented or if they have a magic power, like Superman or whatever. And others call demigods the kids of gods that are kind of not really gods, but sort of gods.
Yeah, exactly.
And those are all pretty different things. But then apparently they're all kind of raked under the same definition of demigods. And also many stories don't call people that have these things demigods at all, because it's not really, it's quite a mythological term.
You're right, exactly.
Right? So in very modern stories, not always are we talking about this in a sort of divine way at all. It's just, talents or magic or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we're closing on what we understand differentiates the demigod from the classic superhero or the general powered folk. It is a link to a realm or a history or a culture or a world that provides them with this gift, right? And then it is the process of the integration of them into a world that doesn't properly belong to them. This kind of halfway point of being like, the stories of demigods is either them living with humans or normal people and trying to blend in, descend into this life and integrate themselves along these people, or them trying to prove themselves to a greater godhood, trying to exist among people much stronger than them. It's a very halfway point, and they truly don't necessarily belong to either, even though they might eventually ascribe themselves to one or the other in kind of devotion, so to speak.
So in that case, we're not really speaking about satisfaction in, being a demigod itself. There's always either the one way or the other way.
Yeah.
Is what you're saying.
And there's definitely like a process of understanding the weight of expectation, realizing what these powers mean in your life, how much hold they will have in your life, and then deciding whether you want to be above the standards of man and live as a powerful being, kind of maturing into a role where you accept this greater responsibility, or simply wanting to hide or just coexisting with people normal and not accepting these powers and being someone who can truly just blend in because that is the life you prefer, right?
That's kind of interesting though, right? That there's not, in a story where we talk about these people as demigods, that there's not or almost never a sort of demigod society.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking about. That's not a thing,
even though they are very much their own kind of culture in a way, because they have this sort of duality to them. That's kind of weird. Like, it's basically like a bus station. Like, you either go back or you go forth, or you should really like aspire to be either half of you, which is weird.
Yeah.
I mean, also interesting, but yeah. I mean, there's plenty of cultures. I don't know. We had a mermaid episode last time, right? Like they're not pretending to either be fish or either be human. I mean, some are, but, in general, they have their own kind of, city structures and, cultural traditions and way of life and language, whatever. But demigods, that's not really a thing with demigods, which is, that's fascinating. Like, how did that not happen?
There's no demi-village.
No, where's the demi-village? Yeah.
Where is the demi-village?
Can anyone point us to the demi-village, please? Yeah.
Yeah, we need directions to the demi-village real quick. Yeah, that's such an interesting point. There's never really a community where the demigods are the majority or like the prevailing existence.
Yeah, not really.
And there's a realm for gods and there's a realm for man, but there's no real realm for demigods. I feel like it's kind of like a weird halfway. We said it before, the weird halfway point.
Kinda, yeah.
So the stories of demigods always have them moving towards one direction or the next. It's never a stationary, I'm a demigod and I'm totally content with how my life is. It's always like dealing with standing out, being different, having that charisma or allure that sets you apart from everybody else, and just existing as an individual rather than any sort of member of a larger community. I think that's so fun.
I think this is also about hierarchy, because in our brains or in the stories we read or the way we always talk about divinity is above men, right? Above the average earthlings that we are. But with demigods, it's kind of strange because either way, I feel like you have to work pretty hard to be part of one culture. Like, it would be easy to say, okay, if they want to ascend to godhood, it's hard. And if they have to like hide amongst the humans, it's easy. It's kind of true, but also not necessarily, because they're not human. So they will have a harder time attempting to be human than, than humans have, because they are humans. You know what I mean?
And that trope of them constantly denying a part of themselves to fit in, like hiding their abilities, achieving less than, so to speak, their full potential.
It's also depressing in the other way.
Yeah.
And then if you have to work so hard to be, I guess, ascended to godhood or be a part of the gods people, you're still going to get looks because you're not the actual deal. You're just kind of trying real hard or something.
You're in the process of rejecting your humanity for the sake of something that should be beyond you,
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's interesting that demigods can choose either way, but will never, because they don't really have societal values or cultures of their own, which is again strange, they'll never just be demigods. They're always on the way to somewhere else.
Yeah. And isn't that a great way to start a story, right? That's a great motivator.
For sure.
That's honestly all I had on that topic. I just found them so interesting as a concept.
Do you use them ever in your own storytelling? Or
demigods? Oh yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite characters, or at least in D&D when I'm playing, a lot of my favorite non-player characters or characters that the party runs into are these demigod figures who are imperfect, who are doing their best to represent these deities in a world that either rejects them or accepts them. And that weight
That's cool.
of like, I have to save the world. It has to be me. And the party's like, well, we're here too, you're not that special.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And there's always the process of, as we've experienced in a couple of campaigns that we've been in, that the main characters or the party have an opportunity to ascend to a state of semi-godhood, where we are truly testing or contesting the space of the gods in our own exploits and achievements. And it's like, hey, you guys are doing a lot. Do you want to be in charge of something? Do you want the power to let you be in charge of something?
You guys are actually
and it's
pretty great. Do you want to be part of our club? Yeah.
Do you want to like formally separate yourself from everybody else and be these statues or figures? And and then everybody says like, are you ready for this? Are we ready for this? Or would we rather live a humble life next to the woods or the forest and not care about any of this stuff? Such a fun topic and such a fun thing to toss at the party, because obviously it's something beyond our own lives, or something truly fantastical that we really get to tap into and dig into the nuances.
Yeah. There's a nice mystique about it also. Like, you'll never truly grasp it. And also gods will never truly grasp demigods, I guess.
Yeah.
Except for if they've been one, maybe. But yeah.
It's like our parents will never understand us, that kind of thing.
It's a generational thing, dude. Yeah.
It's a generational. You wouldn't understand. It's not a phase.
It's not a phase, Dad. Oh, that's so funny.
It's just who I am. Okay, well, that's my topic for today. How about you? Let's bounce over to what you want to talk about.
Basically. I'm sorry.
They're just teens.
I just realized this now. It's a coming of age. That's what it is.
Certainly.
This is just young adult novels. Awesome. Maybe that's why Percy Jackson was so good.
Maybe.
Okay. Bring it back. Okay, shall I get rid of this chaos and move to my topic? Yes, I shall.
Sure.
Okay. I feel like somehow we've discussed this in a lot of other topics that we did.
Sure.
Sort of on the side. And I feel like it deserves its own, 25 minutes of fame. So here we go.
Okay. I'm listening.
I want to talk with you about the ocean or the sea in general.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's great. We love a good sea.
We love
sea landscape,
a good ocean.
Beaches, they're all great. So I feel like they need to be talked about in our world building podcast. It's a very big thing in worlds, I feel like it has some import into a story.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Just a tiny input. I want to start off by the reason why I love it so much.
Yeah, of course.
A very, I guess, emotional thing in the way of like, I just love the feeling of going to the beach and then seeing this sort of endless nothing that is the ocean. I really love that feeling. Holland has a lot of beaches, but they're not like super close to me. So we would have to have a little bit of a drive and then you could have a day at the beach, basically.
Of course.
And that feeling, me and my mom try to visit the beach at least once a year because we both have the same feeling and we both love it a lot. And it's a very nostalgic thing to me. So that's the first thing that I associate personally with the sea. But also what I love about it in general is that it has, well, one, it's so big that it consists of lots of topics or ways to approach this, right? Like we talked about piracy, we talked about trade, I think, before. We talked about travel or transport through sea or through air or through land, right? There's a difference there. But there's also a lot that we don't know about. There's the deep sea, which is one of the wildest fucking places in the world that we don't know anything about, that is filled with crazy, terrifying and beautiful creatures that I've been fascinated with for a long time, even though I don't understand anything about it. Which I think is very wonderful. And it's all still part of the same ocean, right? I think that's really cool. And if we look at it historically, of course, seas and large masses of water have been acting as, natural boundaries as well. There's a thing that as soon as your piece of land is surrounded by an ocean, an island culture kind of emerges. It's a very different way of living on the land when you have sea all around you.
Of course,
or when there's a big ocean between two countries naturally, or between two continents naturally, cultures are going to develop very differently and become very different people. People can be divided by a large body of water, right? There's all sorts of interesting workings, I guess, that the sea can have on the people that live around or near it or are a part of it. Yeah, so I think that's really beautiful as a given. And I'm just curious about your stance on this, or if you've thought about this consciously ever before.
Yeah, this is kind of a big player in world building, isn't it? It's really, really important where your water is. I think to start off, I love the way you talked about just kind of going to the beach and seeing this great expanse into the distance, like disappearing into the horizon. Whenever I go to the beach, I love just walking out, like just to start off for, having a lot of fun with the people I'm with, just walking out as far as I can go without being pulled away by the undertow. And then just feeling like the actual pull and push of the waves on you that makes you feel almost so small in comparison.
For sure.
It's just a surreal feeling to be like, this is not just some weird scientific thing. This is a force, right? This is a body. This is something that could truly just overwhelm you beyond what you could possibly imagine or resist. The ocean is huge. It's vast. It possesses so much space, and you're just a visitor, right?
Yeah.
It pulls the gravitas of the world of how big it is. It's like standing on top of a mountain and looking over the landscape. It makes you feel so small in comparison, and it's such a humbling experience. And then I go eat hot dogs on the beach and enjoy the day.
The best, the absolute best, yes. Yeah, but I think it's super true what you're saying. It's both super humbling and super peaceful to be at the same time. Like it can be so dangerous, and it can be so quiet and solitary and
serene,
peaceful.
Yeah. And also, like what you said, which is such a fun topic to delve into in more serious or spooky books like the deep sea. The fact that all we see is the first 10 feet of surface, right? When there's hundreds of feet below it and entire ecosystems and landscapes and wildlife that exist beyond our purview and might forever live beyond our purview, right? Mm-hmm. We always get those weird stories that come up like, hey, we found a jellyfish that's 75 feet long.
Yeah.
We don't know if there's more, but there probably is, you know?
Yes, this is a new kind of creature now.
Yeah. And it's been here forever. A long time. Yeah. Like that kind of thing where there's still a place of discovery here on this earth. That's not like a lot of things we've figured out, a lot of things we've already found and discovered, and we've already gone through all of our rainforests and all of our mountain peaks, and all of that is fairly visible. But when it comes to the deep sea, that is a place that's still mysterious, right?
Yeah,
a place still unknown.
And that we have very little knowledge of, actually. Like in rainforest, I mean, I don't know the percentage, but I feel like we know a lot about it so far. There's always more to discover, right? There's never a complete at the level, full 100% margin there. But I feel like in comparison to the sea, there's just so much to discover that most of it we don't know. We have some idea and we know of some creatures that exist there, but it's hard to get there. It's super dark. Senses work differently. Like we basically, I guess for the most, rely on our sight and I guess our hearing, and both of those are very, very different in an environment that isn't really made for that, or where that's not the main issue, right? And I think the fact that the ocean or the sea consists of so many things, like it's such a large, well, both surface but also just place, right? There's just so many things. Right. It almost feels strange to me that we know so much about the cultures and the history and the way time passes and our main roads of travel and all those things on land masses on the earth. And we don't know, they're definitely there, but we don't know anything about that in the ocean, or we know only some of it. And I think it's really wonderful that there's so much more to discuss as well. Yeah. So another thing that I want to share with you that it's interesting that I found out because of my work, little side tangent here.
Of course.
I work at a literature festival, and last week we had a really nice brainstorm in which we figured out the main themes that we want to work with or want to create programs and events for the next half year or so, right?
Sure.
And one thing that came up is a very interesting thing that I don't want to delve in too much today, but that is solastalgia, which is a word for kind of mourning the change of a landscape you're very familiar with. Like, I don't know. Yeah, it's super cool. But part of that discussion or that brainstorm was that one of my colleagues told me about the fact that people are starting to give rights to landscapes or natures or, for instance, bodies of water or to a river. And I looked this up. Apparently, people are talking about a sort of declaration of ocean rights. So they would be able to give an ocean as an ecosystem the right to exist and flourish, basically, is a very short summary of it. So in this way, because obviously humans made the way our society works, right? The animals or other kinds of beings didn't really have a lot to do with them. We didn't even see them as beings before, right? They're mostly resources to us still, actually, I think. There's really been a talk going on about not seeing other types of beings or living, organisms, systems.
Sure.
As something to just take from or see as something that we can use. And I think that's a very awesome and interesting idea as well, to sort of give an ocean the right to exist in our society as well, in our, very human-centric society, because obviously we need it. I think there's one schedule where at least half of all the CO2 that's distilled from the air is basically being cleaned by oceans, because it's just so large, and by algae and oceans and stuff. Yeah, so that's very interesting. And a thing that I learned last week that I did not know exist.
Yeah, kind of for our own sake, we have to learn to respect the boundaries of the world that continues to provide for us, right?
Yeah.
Every time you're like, oh, we have to give the ocean rights, I imagine the ocean in a business suit, going
signing,
to signing some papers. Yes. Yeah. Here you go, Mr. Ocean. Here is your coral reef proprietary location.
File it away in your waterproof file cabinet. Yep.
And it just gurgles and waves. There's a sense of reverence and respect that is often paid to the ocean. If you look into the pantheons of gods, there is always a god of the sea, a god of the ocean, god of the water. because it's such a relevant force in our lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
In that aspect, I was thinking about it, and you're like, we understand the world above, but we don't understand like the world beneath the surface. And it's almost like beautiful and artistic and poetic how the world above and the world beneath is separated by this one thin layer. If you just sink your head just a little bit below the water, you can see a great expanse that follows entirely different rules, entirely different like physical and mental things.
Mm-hmm.
It's the closest thing we have to kind of stepping into a world that's not our own.
I think so, yeah. And also like physically the closest thing, like we have space is also pretty weird, but it takes a little bit more effort to get there. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so far out of our comfort zone that it kind of halts or slows down the process of exploration, but it doesn't make us any less curious, right?
Yeah.
To see what happens there, to see how everybody abides by these different rules, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's such a powerful and big presence that I find that this concept of the ocean is often personified, given like different values or beliefs or attributes, like the angry sea, the calm sea, the torrential storms that everyone dares to wander or voyage into, and of course the sense of wonder that always exists, that inspires all of these like pirate stories. There's always an opportunity to explore and learn more when it comes to the ocean, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the fact that we've been like coexisting with something that we don't understand for so long is also pretty interesting to me, because usually humans really hate it when we don't understand something or we want to own it, right? Or kind of tame it, like wild animals or storms or whatever. And I don't know if we can really do that. That's also interesting, by the way, as someone from the Netherlands, because we've usually are quite good at ironically taming, I guess, the water, in the way of like Dutch people are quite famous for being able to manipulate land or create land from seas, right? Because I think we're like 6 meters below sea level or something. I don't know. There's
yeah, your dam system is crazy.
Yeah, we have good dams and stuff. People pay us for dam knowledge, I guess. But it really creates this image of like, oh, we can just create land if we want to, or we can kind of own the seas or can remove the seas if we don't want them, right? And that's very strange because that's not really real. It's not really a thing.
Yeah.
Like we can create small islands and stuff. Yeah, sure, we can do that. But it's also very much a limited skill or something. Like as soon as you go out there and the whole thing is around you, it kind of changes your perspective on things. And it's very quickly you become a very tiny human again that's just at the mercy of this giant entity, right? That is the ocean, which is interesting. Yeah.
Do you have any like favorite stories or favorite depictions of the ocean, whether it be from like movies or songs or videos or even just pictures that like evoke like why the ocean is so like beloved?
Right. There's actually, I know a few of those. There's one song that is by, I think, Johnny Flynn and Laura Marling. I'll send it to you, but it's called The Water.
Sure.
I think. Or The River. Either way. It's really beautiful. And it's very poetic and sort of talking about the image or the visual in my brain that it's like where this sea meets the sky, that there's not really a boundary sometimes, that it's almost the same color and it's just looks like the entirety of the world is basically sea and sky at the same time. And it's really cool. And also it's just a beautiful song. Oh, yes. I've also, for my graduation project actually, from graphic design, I've been drawing lots of creatures that I don't know. And I found this one YouTube channel. I think it's like, I don't know the name. I'll look it up later. But there's like, it's basically just an aquarium. Is that an English word?
Yeah, aquarium.
Right. So it's basically just a channel for like very big sea aquaria, I think, or aquariums. They have like live streams for jellyfish and stuff for like hours and hours. It sounds crazy, but it's so fascinating to watch because I don't understand what I'm looking at, right? These creatures are so strange and they move in such unusual ways that I just want to figure them out, but I can't because I don't have the knowledge. Right. So it's basically like a screensaver that's real. And it's very cool and very wonderful to draw because you get all these crazy shapes that you wouldn't think of. It's actually hanging on my wall there. Dante can see it in the video preview.
Oh, okay. I see.
But
you'll have to take my word for it, guys.
And it creates all these super wonderful abstract forms, right, that I would never have thought of because it's not really how our brain thinks of shapes and stuff.
Right.
And that's really cool too. And kept staring at that for like way longer than I anticipated, because it's not really cool to say like, oh yeah, I watched like a live stream of jellyfish for an hour. But it was really nice, and it was very fascinating that I loved it so much. So that's really good. And also in general, I love stories when the sea is just super dangerous and ominous. I think it's just such a cool force to just play around with, right? Like the fact that we're just so tiny in comparison to it, it's something that's very cool. But that counts for all storms and cool landscapes. I feel like we talked about this. I just love weather where you feel like, oh dang, the world's breaking apart around me, and I love it. I love that feeling. So when the sea is doing that, count me in. I'm good. I'm done. I want to hear all about it.
There's a sense of like reckless wonder that kind of comes to mind whenever you have to deal with forces beyond yourself, right? Like, that's out of my control.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool,
Just hope it goes well. Hope I don't die.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
It's very, very cool.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah.
Use more oceans in your stories. I'm sure you do. It's very hard. It's very hard not to when you're world building.
Yeah. I have a lot of oceans, I think, in stories in general. There's a lot of oceans in my stories. Yeah. I wrote a very cool short story where spoiler, but yeah, I don't think you're going to read it.
One day.
Sure. But there's a short story where there's two characters, and one of them is paralyzed from the waist down, basically. And it talks about how they can never go out, and their partner always comes back, and then they bring the smell of the world back with them, kind of, when they open the door. And it ends with a very metaphorical, kind of abstract scene of where water starts seeping in from the ground, and then suddenly they're floating, and it doesn't feel like they're paralyzed anymore because they're just kind of part of the whole. It's very abstract and
I like that.
Fancy, but it's very nice. And I love when water is such a good metaphor. I think this was like an entire Lindsay Ellis video where she talked about water being a metaphor and talked about how bad she found the Pocahontas movie. Anyway.
Listen, for a podcast called Your Rivers Are Wrong, I think we talk about water an appropriate amount.
Yeah. Never enough water. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's a fun topic.
Seas are great. Yeah. I love them in stories.
And we'll almost definitely come back to them. Actually, you know what? My prompt, unprompted by you, by the way, which is a perfect segue, involves water. Certainly does involve water. So we were on the same wavelength today.
Great minds.
Great minds. Here is the topic. We talk about the concept of wrong rivers. Actually, not at all. We famously avoid it.
Famously so, yes.
We're going to dip our collective toes, into a topic
that
kind of taps into this world building aspect. So here is my prompt for you. I'm not going to ask you to describe the river because we famously don't talk about it.
Classified.
Describe to me a monster that ends up living in the wrong river.
Oh no, I feel so bad for them already. Okay. Ooh, now that's a good one.
Now, you might unfortunately have to describe what's wrong about this place, but you don't have to.
I mean, this is instantly the challenge, right? Like, okay, so usually this monster lives in, or is planning on, I guess, moving to one river that is right for them.
Of course.
But then, they take a different turn. They end up at the wrong river. It's wait, I didn't plan for this one. Wait, this one? Okay. Okay, I have a plan.
I can see the personality
it's brewing
forming already.
In my mind. Yeah, it's cooking. Okay. This monster is basically super...
I'm so ready.
Super long and straight. So it needs a pretty straight river to live in.
Like a yardstick?
Because it can't breathe air.
Stick?
It's gotta be submerged. Okay, so we need a good river that doesn't have too much curves in them. Because it's going to mess up their whole, anatomy and stuff.
It will be real bad for their back,
Yeah. It's a monster, right? So this is a big ass monster. Otherwise it wouldn't work. Okay. I'm thinking of this in a sort of the way that you have those desert animals that kind of dig sand around them and then
Where are you going? Where are you going with this?
I'm trying to explain and also understand how English words work at the same time and also think of a monster. Okay.
Got it.
In my brain, this is what's going on in my brain.
Help me out here.
I'm thinking of those desert animals, right? That kind of cave themselves in the sand, and then when a smaller creature falls into the sand pit, their jaws are just at the bottom of the pit and they eat them, right? These? I don't know what this is, like a scorpion or something, or a spider, I don't know. But then basically this, but in a very large river. So this monster is just super big and kind of envelops the entire bottom of the river. And when someone falls in, they just kind of snatch at it. Maybe they have like a bunch of super tiny claws or teeth all over. Maybe this is like basically a, I don't know, snake with teeth all over their body. I don't know, something like that.
Okay, I can see it.
Yeah, okay, we're getting there. So whenever someone falls into this river, they're basically done for. They're dying. This monster's eating them.
It's over.
There's not a lot of, sea life in this river, strangely.
What?
Yeah, strange. Very strange. So this monster was kind of doing their thing, living in the huge place, which is just a large canal or river or whatever, because their body is super straight, as I specified before.
Of course.
This is really going somewhere. Keep with me here. And then their river got, I don't know, dried up or destroyed, or people realized that, you really shouldn't fall into this river or you'll die. So maybe they stopped living around the river and the monster got no humans to feed on. So they're like, okay, what do I do now? This is a very pragmatic monster, obviously, as you can hear, by the way, of how their brain works. And they're like, okay, so I either starve in this very perfectly shaped river or I try to find another river that I can fit in that has more humans around or, other life around, I guess, that I can eat with my body.
Okay. Got it.
Take some time to think. Eventually, they're getting real fucking hungry. So they're like, okay, today's the day. Gotta pack up my things. Gotta move out of this fucking river, even though it brought me so much joy and is where I grew up. I don't know, whatever. Emotional backstory. He moves to the next river and really thinks that all rivers are really straight and, fitted to the way their body is shaped. Because obviously, how else could they've there must be other monsters like this around. Why would any river be like curved? That wouldn't make sense.
Makes no sense at all.
Yeah. So he looks up the nearest river on Google. Sure.
Yeah, of course. Right.
Smartphone. This is a modern monster. Yes.
Modern monster.
Figures out the next river next to them and takes a trip. Takes some days. He's getting real hungry. He can't really breathe air, so he's got to be pretty quick about it. This is all very logical storytelling, as
monsters do.
Yeah. He comes up to this nearest river. He's like, thank fucking God, because this took ages. I'm very glad that, he's seen some villages around. He's seen like oblivious people just greeting them on the way, not realizing that he's very deadly in general. Yeah. So he's like, okay, fuck yes. This is the greatest plan, right? I'm going to like revamp. This is, I'm going to basically re-educate myself. I'm gonna come on top of this problem that I have.
New river, new me,
New river, new me. Yeah, exactly. This is his midlife I guess river crisis. I don't know. He comes to the nearest river. He realizes it's a pretty wrong river. Like it looks a river. It has water. It's pretty deep, but there's like fish and stuff in it that he doesn't recognize. And also, he's too long for the straight parts of the river. He's too long. Like this is a very curvy, flowy river going through like little creeks and having like all kinds of stones around.
Oh, I hate when that happens.
Yeah, I hate when that happens. Stupid fucking rivers not being straight enough for my body to fit in.
The nerve.
So he's like, okay, I either go into this river or I find another one, but I might die because I haven't had food in a while, right? So I guess I'll just, maybe if I just, and it just gotta just try to squeeze it. And he's like, oh, it's not really working, but I guess I can manage for like a day or two and then come out because this is really hurting my anatomy.
Oh no. It's like when you sleep in the wrong position on bed and it's just like, oh,
forever. Yeah. Very sad. But he has a new river, but he might become a very grumpy version of himself now because he's, bent in the wrong places. Is this the end? Yes, this is the end of my story.
Sure. This is clearly the backstory of a very grumpy sea monster.
Yeah.
And if you ever meet him and he doesn't kill you, he tells you his story of life was good once. I once had a perfectly straight river for my perfectly straight body,
Yeah, exactly. Don't we all want things that fit our body instead of like squeeze ourselves in awkward positions? We do.
Yeah, this is a metaphor.
Very
for life.
Relatable. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's totally what this is. Yep, that's totally my plan with this storytelling.
Okay, well, maybe another day we'll talk about the details of that wrong river.
Yeah.
But for now, you'll have to be content with the story of the uncomfortable sea monster.
I feel very bad for him now.
Yeah, he's kind of like a tragic tale.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. If you want to tell us about the escapades of this uncomfortable sea monster, feel free to contact us at yourriversarewrong@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your stories. If he has a name, if you want to come up with a name, by all means, tell us.
Yes, please.
And as you continue
please do better than me.
You set up a great premise. I think it's a great start. Well,
sure.
We'll sort it out later. Don't worry about it. This is all going to be workshopped, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is what we do throughout the week. We workshop our prompts.
Obviously, yeah, because we have time for that. Yeah.
Well, as we go on with the week, please send your well wishes to Marilla as she goes on her
Thank you
goes on a trip,
and to Dante for stopping to hiccup and cough and stuff.
Yeah, please. When we come back, Marilla will be back. I will not be sick, and we will have a wonderful episode ahead.
We will be so organized, so educated,
so prepared.
Just you wait.
You're not ready. Yeah. And as you world build and story tell, of course, there's always something that you've got to remember, as the sea monster would remind you. Your rivers are wrong.
Yeah, they're pretty wrong.
Have a good one.
Sorry.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Your Rivers Are Wrong. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas for future episodes that you'd like to hear us cover, feel free to contact us at yourriversarewrong@gmail.com. Our intro and outro music is written by Maarten Schellekens. Thanks for that. And again, thank you so much for listening. We hope to see you at the next one.